Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee.
Has anything ever gone like madly, totally, hilariously wrong that we would never have heard about?
Oh God, I've got one, but I can't share that one because I can't
go away.
Come on, it's just us.
Okay, well I don't know. Maybe we can probably edit this one out, can we? If it's okay. So there was one. There was one scene.
You know, Mary, it always amazes me just how much talent we have in this country. We've had so many of them, so many talent guests into our podcast. And whether it's stage or screen or behind the scenes, the Irish acting industry seems to punch well above its weight. It's a bit like we were talking about the Irish going to the States for St. Patrick's Day or Japan, all the big iconic buildings being turned green for the day.
And other nations just don't get that.
They don't get that.
They don't get it. It is a remarkable phenomenon. And of course, in the same way that Irish actors have made their mark on Hollywood, the West End and beyond. But, you know, homegrown productions like Fair City are the backbone of Irish television for decades. And of course, today's guest is someone who's been at the heart of that world for over 20 years now.
Yes.
Even though he looks like an altar boy.
He looks about 18, you're right. For more than 2 decades, he's been entertaining the nation as Mondo O'Connell in Fair City. He brings drama, humour and a little bit of mischief to Carrickstown.
I think he's in serious danger of almost growing out of the mischief now, is he not? He's getting a wee bit more mature, but there's a lot more to him than just soap stardom. He got his start as a teenager in the BAFTA-winning Custer's Last Stand-Up. Won Celebrity Farm, imagine, in 2003. There has to be a story in that.
Yeah.
And then he very generously donated the prize from that to charity. And we know, those of us who watch him, how he has continued to evolve as an actor, a presenter and a performer.
Mm-hmm. And let's not forget, he's also the co-owner of Glitz Performing Arts, where he's passing on his love of the stage to the next generation, a man of many talents.
Well, we're absolutely delighted to welcome to our podcast the brilliant George McMahon, the Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations. George, you're very welcome to Allenwood.
Thank you very much. I'm actually sitting here blushing. Yeah, I actually am. I'm kind of sweating.
Yeah, I can vouch for that, yeah.
Yes, I don't even know where to look. Well, that's quite the introduction. So are you listening, Rachel? I am a big deal. Okay, that's my wife, because you can't be a big deal at home. I'm delighted to be here.
Knows you as Mondo, but there's this is the way you pronounce it, Mondo.
That's the way it is pronounced sometimes, yeah, Mondo. Podge and Raj call me something else. They have a different name for me. But yeah, so Mondo or your man off the telly or that idiot. I'll respond to most of those things. But
do people on the street call you Mondo?
Yeah, that's what people do. Yeah,
so.
And it's something that I used to kind of get a little bit precious about. It, but like, that's my character's name. I'm an actor. My name is George. But I actually now, if someone asks me to do like a little video to say happy birthday to their granny, I won't even bother saying George anymore. I say, how's it going? This is Mondo here from Fair City with a very special birthday message for you, Auntie Mary.
Yeah, because if you say George, they're probably going to say, it's just Mondo's lookalike.
It's just Mondo. Yeah, the other fella, George Murphy, they call me that as well. Because So myself and George would be the same age, so it's if it's not me, it's him.
But let's go back to the beginning. I didn't realise until I was reading up about you that you and I grew up in the same place. You grew up in Clondalkin for a while?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So
whereabouts?
I was in James Conley Park, which is across from Cappamore. So I went to school in Clonburris. So it was a great estate. Tell
us about the family.
So my mum and dad and my sister, my older sister. And it's mad because when we were kids, myself and my sister, there was 4 years between us, and we used to be like itchy and scratchy. We used to kill each other. And then it wasn't until we got into adult life that actually we couldn't be any closer. It's that kind of thing. But so growing up, it was Clondalkin, a council estate, and the type of estate that would have street parties, in the summer, and Santa would come down at the street at Christmas time and stuff, and a proper community. So we grew up.
Clondalkin's a great place for community. It really is, all over it. And was it always going to be acting, George?
No, it wasn't always going to be acting. For me, like I probably was always acting the maggot. That's kind of what
a
different thing altogether. Yeah, and I was always kind of maybe attention seeking. Maybe that was it. But I didn't quite know that I wanted to be an actor until I was maybe in my teens. Okay. But in the early days, I had loads of different hobbies and stuff. So I was trying out football. Gaelic football, and my dad was the coach, and that was interesting. But I was kind of terrible. I wasn't the most athletic. I wasn't the best at the football, so I kind of probably let my dad down. But I was always looking for my tribe. I think that's what you do when you're growing up. You're trying to find who are your people. And it wasn't then until I was about 12 or 13 then I joined the Independent Theatre Workshop, which is a stage school in association with the Helen Jordan Stage School. And it was singing, dancing and acting, and it was something then that I kind of just, as soon as I was 3 or 4 weeks into that, then that's when I knew these are my people, this is my tribe, and that's kind of where I started out.
Mm-hmm. What about your mum and dad? Had they other ambitions for you? Yeah,
my mum and dad, my mum and dad were always very supportive, and like my mum, I was a mammy's boy, always like a mammy's boy. My dad was mad into business and entrepreneur and stuff. And if I was ever kind of in trouble at home, I'd run into my mum's arms. I kind of do that thing where that my kids do that to me now, where they play one off the other. So I was always a mammy's boy growing up. So they loved the idea of me pursuing acting, but they were very concerned and worried. And
because they must have been worried about the future, because it's not exactly what you'd call this your permanent and pensionable job.
Absolutely not. So like when I was 13 or 14, I was in the stage school about a year, and I was going for different auditions, and I started getting small parts. So the very first job I got was on a Roddy Doyle film called When Brenda Met Trudy.
Yes.
I got to spend a week on a movie set. Got to, create a character, work with other actors, and I was like, this is kind of cool. Mm-hmm. And one thing my dad always said to me growing up was that if you can find something that you like doing or that you love doing, and you can figure out a way to charge money for it, you'll never work a day in your life. And kind of that rang true then for that week on that movie set. I kind of, I got paid at the end of it, and I thought, this is a no-brainer, this is what I want to do. And as soon as that paycheck came in, and it wasn't even that much, but as soon as that came in, it kind of solidified the idea that this could be a career. And I obsessed over it, and I basically told my parents from the age of 14, 15, I said, this is what I want to do. And they nodded and supported, but I'm sure they secretly hoped that this was just a phase I was going through. Yeah. That I would eventually grow out of it. And then I got to 18 years of age then, and I had filled out my CAO.
What were you going to do on that?
I'd put down loads of things. So because I was working on Custer's Last Stand-Up for 5th and 6th year, I'd missed like 100 days.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it was a cool experience. So when I was 15, I got down to the last 2 or 3 for this big role. It was an RTE BBC co-production. And it was probably the biggest TV show that RTE had gone in on since like the Ballroom of Romance. Which is one of those big kind of, it was like 13 half-hour episodes, and we ran it for 2 seasons. I got the role in it, but that took me away from school then for 2 years. But again, it solidified the idea that I was pursuing this acting career.
And it won a BAFTA.
And I won a BAFTA, yeah. I won a BAFTA for Best Children's Drama. Oh, absolutely, yeah. So I kind of manipulated a little bit to make that I've won the BAFTA, because there's no way they would have won the BAFTA without me. But yeah, so I have a great memory of going to the BAFTAs, myself and Kieran Nolan, my co-star on the gig, and it was in the Park Lane Hilton. And we got to go, and I think Ant and Deck were presenting it was the children's BAFTA, so it was kind of a cool event. I remember stupidly, I was 16, and we were in the Park Lane Hilton in our head to toe in a tux. Everyone else was kind of dressed in London chic, but we were the two gobshite Irish. We were like Dumb and Dumber. But like we were up to mischief, and I remember we took a stroll down into the basement of the Park Lane Hilton, where there was this cigar. Is it called a humidorium? Is that what they're called?
humidor.
Where I went in, and I remember like I had £100 cash. I think I might have changed it in the airport, and I was like, "Give us a cigar," you know. So I remember we thought that this is what you do when you make it, and we got a cigar in the bottom of things. I think it was £50 each.
That was your £100 gone.
That was £100 gone. But we went up to our room then, and we didn't have the thing that chops off the end of it, so we bit them off, and then we took a drag out, and we were like, "Oh my god, we don't like cigars." Neither of us smoked, but we just thought this was the most stupid thing. But it was an amazing experience, and again, it sold to 20 countries around the world, and it was quite a big deal at the time. But again, I was only 15 or 16, coming up to my 17th, filling out the CAO form, and my mum and dad were like, "Just do business, or just, you know, do something in third level that would be a backup," you know. And I filled out the CV or the CAO. And when the results came out, then I had auditioned for Fair City. So with a choice then, I got offered the role as Mondo in Fair City, or I could have taken business in, I can't remember what it was. Okay. It was DBS or one of those, Griffith College, because I didn't have the points. I didn't even add up my points. So I had a choice of going to college or taking the gig on Fair City. And I just loved acting so much, and it's something that I really, really wanted to do. I suppose the thing that niggles away at me now, even today, is that I kind of jokingly refer to myself as the uneducated buffoon, because I never really got the letters after my name, and it's something
Does that
that
bother
is.
you?
A little bit now, because I just think that, do you know, it's something that it's still there for me. Like, I'd love to, you know, I've an interest in law. I'd love to. Study
it's
law.
not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere, and it still niggles away. And Rachel, my wife, she's so supportive. She's like, "George, just go for it. We can support you in whatever way." But it's that one of those things that still niggles away at me.
But it's funny that you say that, because we had Niall Quinn in for a podcast, and he was the same. He got to Arsenal at 16.
Yeah.
So the education went by the wayside, and he quite recently went back and did a degree in history in DCU. So it's
okay, right. Well, there you go. So that'd be my inspiration there. You know,
there you go.
I'd love to do it. So that took me up to 18, and I took the choice. And I was supported by my parents, and actually secretly because my dad was a Fair City fan.
That helped.
That helped, yeah. So I was doing this kind of like, you know, in my head I was a BAFTA-winning actor, this BAFTA-winning series, and it was sold around the world. And I remember they were flying me over to London to do these big talk shows and stuff, and we got to do Red Nose Day, and it was a really big deal. But my parents could probably see it with a bit more perspective. But as soon as I got the gig on Fair City, because Fair City is a little bit like the exception to the rule in terms of acting. Like, most actors don't know what they're doing in 6 weeks' time. Whereas with Fair City, you do have a chance of knowing what you're doing.
For the next 30 years?
For the next 30 years.
You didn't know that at the time.
I didn't know that at the time, but definitely I knew what I would have been doing for the next 2 years. You know, it could have been in there.
And George, would you have been shy initially going in on the set of Fair City? Because there were big names there, weren't there?
Well, they were the big names, like Jim Bartley.
Yeah.
And Pat Levy was the actress who played Hannah Finnegan. She was, you know, the matriarch of the Doyle family, and she was a big deal. These were all iconic soap characters that we grew up with in our house. And yeah, I was a little bit shy, a little bit kind of.
How'd you get over that?
I don't know how I get over it. Even like I kind of get a little bit kind of shy, even coming in here today. You know, this is not lost on me that I'm here with two icons here today. It's not lost on me. And I, you know, it's something that you just, it's fight or flight. Yeah. You know, and I went in and kind of just tried to hold my own, like what I'm trying to do here today.
Were they supportive? Well-established
they
actors,
were great.
Like a family.
Yeah, my first ever scene was to rob a packet of fags off Pat Levy. And that's what Mondo's first task was, to rob a packet of Dunhill off her, and that was my introduction into the soap. And they were all very kind and nice to me. And you know, it's mad now that I'm kind of like the veteran on the other side, and I work with the younger ones now coming through, and you know, they're full of the joys, and it's great to have them as well.
And Mondo has matured from stealing fags, hasn't he?
Yeah, well, not that much. Like, you know, he's matured in the sense that he's not the cheeky chappy that he was. And that's good. That's a little bit more fun to play. I mean, last year we celebrated 35 years on the air, which was unbelievable. And every year in September, to kind of try and compete with all the, they do the autumn launch, so it's all the new seasons of everything. So to try and compete with that, we always put out an explosive storyline. So last year for the 35th anniversary, they blew Mondo up. Thankfully he survived, but that was a really fun thing to do, and there was kind of a dark storyline then for Mondo afterwards, where he kind of started to lose his mind, and he became a stalker, and there was kind of dark elements that I got to play with as well, which is really fun, because as an actor it is nice to have a little bit of colour when you're approaching a role.
Has anything ever gone like madly, totally, hilariously wrong that we would never have heard about?
Oh God, I've got one, but I can't share that one because I can't go away.
Come on, just us.
Okay, well, I don't know. Maybe we can probably edit this one out, can we? If it's okay. So there was one. There was one scene. No, I can't actually. I can't.
Pick another one, George.
I picked another one. We cut that one out just to get a time code on that. Just because of who's in the room.
Leave that to us.
Yeah, okay. There was one where I kind of might have told a fib that I had a full license of the car. I might have had that down on my CV. So they had the character driving the car, and there was this thing where I had to drive the car. I didn't have a full license, and I might have knocked over a camera. They were like, "It's fine. There's no damage there. Sure, it's fully insured." So happens you got the yeah. So there's the scoop.
Did you get into wild trouble over that?
No, I think they kind of saw, they kind of minded me, and any of the damage that I would have done, I think they might have been okay. Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah.
Is there? You've tackled an awful lot of difficult storylines over the last 30 odd years in that show. Were there any of them that you found that actually impacted on you personally?
Yeah, I suppose there's a couple of stories. Like the biggest storyline was my first big storyline in Fair City, which was the teenage pregnancy storyline. And it's something that resonated with the nation, basically. And like 20 odd years ago, there wasn't that many TV stations, so we kind of had more of a captive audience, and people consumed TV a little bit more differently back then as well. You think everybody sat down and watched the telly together and talked about it together, so it was kind of water cooler discussions. So that the teenage pregnancy storyline, Mondo was only 16. I think his girlfriend was only 15 at the time, and it was a Romeo and Juliet story, and they, the audience wanted it to work for them, and eventually it did. And even 20 odd years later, we're still together.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like it was the greatest love story never told. So that was a really good storyline. That was a fun storyline. It was quite a dark storyline for Mondo, maybe into his third year. So himself and Ciara had broken up. She had stolen the baby away to Liverpool, and he was left heartbroken. And he found a new girlfriend, and he was actually falsely accused of rape, which was quite a dark storyline. Which would be a very tricky storyline to tackle nowadays. When you think about, I suppose the backdrop of what can happen, the kind of with the female, but he was falsely accused of rape, and there was this standoff scene where he takes on her father. It was the father who kind of was trying to muddy Mondo's name, and they had this kind of standoff, which was kind of it was a dark storyline, but it was something that kind of affected me as an actor, because how do you treat this with the sensitivity that it needs to be? You need to really tread carefully with this.
And dig deep, I suppose, bringing, your real life experience of the world into
absolutely,
how you treat
And I remember looking back, because I had that scene on my show reel. Most actors will have a show reel, which is a video clip of your best bits as an actor. And I remember having that scene in my show, and it's me standing off against her father. And it's just absolute visceral rage, that you would try and ruin my good name. It's kind of one of those scenes that I dug deep, and it still kind of sits with me now. Yeah.
But it's a great skill to be able to kind of, I suppose, mirror real life in fiction.
Yeah, absolutely. I try and access that character's emotion in that time. I mean, I suppose that's the nature of the gig. But like, if you're trying to find something and you've no life experience on it, then you have to try and do that in your research.
And do you sit around, you know, when the script is written and have a little bit of a brainstorming session about, you know, your piece and what you're going to say and how the emotions are going to be channeled?
I would love to say that we would be afforded that luxury in terms of the process for Fair City, and it's nothing to do with anything else other than the workload and the time. So, and that's the other kind of discussion that we would have about, like, trying to describe the difference between how Peaky Blinders looks on the TV and how Fair City might look, you know. Obviously budget, but the other thing then as well is that we're shooting 2 hours, like 60 minutes of drama per week, whereas you might shoot 3 minutes of Peaky Blinders in a day, you know. So there's just, they have much more time to rehearse. So what is
explain your working structure to us?
So for me in Fair City, we do a read through of the episodes. So that's kind of a little bit what you're talking about there. We read the episodes from start to finish on a Monday, and if there's any issues or problems, we try and iron them out on the day. But it's certainly not a rehearsal. You don't have time to tease out all the moments and the thing, and then you rehearse and record on a Tuesday.
You've got to learn it off.
You got to learn it off.
When would you have seen it for the first time? When would?
So you get them the scripts maybe a week or two in advance.
Right.
So if I'm in 2 weeks' time, the scripts will arrive in the post maybe tomorrow.
Would you be walking around the house just going over it and over it and over it, or how would you?
I'm very lucky that I'm one of the lucky ones. I have this like a photographic memory.
You are very lucky.
So I can read the script a couple of times, run it with the actor once or twice, and then it's kind of locked in. So I'm not kind of bogged down with the hours of trying to learn things, which is great. It's called my cramming muscle. Do you know if anyone has ever crammed for an exam?
And you were always going to get 600 points then. If you had read the stuff.
That's it. Yeah, I could have. Because that's it. It's just a memory test, isn't it? The lead-up is just a memory test. Yeah. So I'm lucky because my colleagues in there, some of them are in there 30 years, and they wouldn't dare step foot in RTE without having spent 3 or 4 hours on the script the night before. Wow. So their working day is completely different to mine. I can go in, I can rehearse and record, but they can be long days. They could be called in for 7:30, and you could be in there till 9:30 at night. You could do these kind of long days where they have a split day where you could be in studio and on location at the same time. So you're kind of running from studio out onto the back lot there where all the fake street is.
Yeah. Is it pretty much Monday to Friday then?
Yeah, it's Monday to Friday. Yeah, sometimes you'd be called in for a Saturday if it's a busy week, but Monday to Friday. And again, it really depends on your storyline. I mean, sometimes, if you're in the 35th anniversary episodes and they're blowing you up, you're in for long days. But then some weeks you're not. Some weeks you have a couple of pub scenes, maybe a shop scene, and then your day could be a lot shorter. You could be lucky or unlucky, depending on how much you like going in there.
Yeah, and you do like it. You still look forward to it, do you, after 20 years?
I am blessed. I love it. I still get excited opening the scripts. I still, even though RT is a much different place nowadays to the way it used to be, I still get that thrill when the security gate opens up and I drive in. I still am taken by the history of the grounds itself. Uncle Gabo is still there. His head, his bust is still there. The ghost of Gabo is still there. And all my memories from over the years, it is still a massive institution, and it's still very much a privilege to be part of.
You run a drama school. If you're going from on stage where the script is provided, you're doing Fair City, you've been given the script, you've learnt it, and that's a different gig, I would say, altogether from running your old drama school, preparing people for stage acting.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's we talk about the differences between stage acting and screen acting, and how a lens of a camera can tell you so much with just by moving your eyebrow or your eye, and then we talk about then trying to show an emotion then on the stage, and the person in the front row needs to see that same emotion as the same person as the back row. You have to tweak your body language then. So whatever you could have done with your eyebrow or your eye, and on a lens, now you have to embody that into your body, so that the person in the back row of the person in the cheap seats can still see what it is. So we that's something that we run side by side in the stage school. And I suppose the teaching end of things, when I started it first, it was kind of like a means to an end, in terms of it was to try and supplement my life while I pursue this acting lark. And then it was just slowly but surely then it became this thing that I absolutely adored doing. Last week we were in Disneyland performing with the students, and they didn't do any acting on the stage. It was all singing and dancing. So it was basically all Rachel's work. So I just thought that it's more exciting in Disneyland for them to be singing and dancing rather than getting up and doing monologues. But Rachel would say, well, that's just you being lazy. Yeah, so there you go.
But the students must have had a wonderful time, did they?
Yeah, it was one of those things where, like, Rachel and myself, we would sit and we had 80 people to get over and back safely. And the whole build up to it, we were like, are we mad? Like, why are we doing this to ourselves? It's not like, it's not like it's making us lots of money. It's not like it's, but then after they came off stage and then the parents, the feedback, and you just go, that's actually what this is all about.
And you go to schools as well, don't you? As well as having your own
that's another thing that
school.
so that kind of happened. COVID was one of the biggest changes for all of us. We had just moved into our house. And we were kind of 3 months into our mortgage when everything shut down. So RTE was shut down. So Fair City was gone. The stage school was gone. Any income at all. And myself and Rachel, we were living off the pub payment. And we had to ring the bank and say, listen, we've no money for you, and we don't know when we're going to have money for you. So we just sat and I thought, what are we going to do? We just had Frankie at the time. Cody is a COVID baby. There was nothing else to do. So I was looking at the only thing that were open were schools, secondary schools. So I devised this dance and drama workshop through Zoom. You can imagine how tragic that was, really.
No, I'd say people were just delighted.
Yeah, well, it was great. It was okay for me because I got good engagement, but poor Rachel, she was doing a dance class, but everyone had the camera switched off. She's like, George, nobody switched their cameras on. It's like, oh yeah, no, they don't do like the cameras switched on.
A bit self-conscious.
A bit self-conscious. But from that then, I made all the contacts with about 40 or 50 schools all around Ireland. And they said, when this mess is over, would you fancy doing in-person in class? And I was like, absolutely. So now that has kind of taken up more time than anything else.
Busy, George. And you and your wife with 2 small children. What ages are they?
So they're 6 and 3. So Frankie is 6, going on 16. It is frightening how we don't really get much of the baby time. She really just has just become this little woman. And then we've got Cody, then our COVID baby. He's 3, and the 2 of them are full of beans. We're very lucky. We've got good support for our stage school days. Nana Trassa minds them on Mondays and Fridays to let us do our teaching for so it's great. I love you, Nana Trassa.
You can't live without her. No. Tell me, whenever you're everywhere you go, you're known as Mondo Enda. Yeah. What's your relationship with the fans like? And would that have changed from the beginning to now? Just the way in which you develop the relationship with fans?
That's a great question. It does. Yeah, because I suppose when I started working on Fair City, I was 18. It was the week of my 18th birthday. So I was a kid myself. So I was going to nightclubs and discos and hanging out. And I remember, hanging out in Dublin was fine. It was Celtic Tiger Dublin, so everyone thought they were great. So nobody in Dublin ever would have admitted to watching Fair City. Even though every taxi driver, every taxi you got into would be able to tell you all the storylines, but nobody watched it. Maybe the wife makes them watch it. But if you go to Galway or Cork or into the Midlands, they're really, really, really into it, and they've no problem sharing that with you. The problem maybe in the early days was that if the girls were showing you a bit of attention and their boyfriends that might have had a little bit of a problem. So there might have been, you know, a bit of argy-bargy, you know, in the chip shop late nights back in the day. But I think people's relationship with celebrity culture has changed over the years. I think there's definitely more access to people who are, you know, of a certain profile. So I think there used to be a mystique, I think, attached to celebrities.
Well, social media has changed all that, hasn't it?
Yeah, so everyone just has a direct line to their favourite celebrity.
Performer, yeah.
And the mystique is gone. So I do think that people are a little bit nicer, I think. I find that people are nice. I haven't come across a negative fan experience in a very long time, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. And becoming well known, what kind of an effect did that have on you? Like, did it kind of impact you as a person?
Yeah, I suppose it must have in some way. I was kind of lucky that my progression into the limelight was kind of a slow burner. So I had those couple of bits, and you know, I'm not one of these kind of recovering child actors. So I was very lucky that I kind of progressed into it. But yeah, it must have had some sort of effect on me. I still don't know what that is, but I definitely, I definitely probably I just would have had that kind of hyper awareness. I felt there was a little bit more animosity in the earlier years. Maybe I think the attitude towards Fair City as well has changed over the years. I mean, back in the day, it used to get an awful lot of stick. And I think there was a big storyline, a kind of a gangster storyline with Billy Meehan. And that kind of changed people's perception of it. They were kind of like, oh, Fair City is kind of cool and edgy now. And that has happened since, I think, as well. Yeah. So, yeah.
And so well established.
Yeah,
like,
so well established. That's
part
it.
Of the social culture.
Yeah, yeah. Whether people want to admit it or not, it's kind of, it's there. It's in the social fabric, I think.
How did you meet Rachel? Just to change the subject. Because you've mentioned her quite a few times.
Oh,
now.
yeah. Well,
she kind of slips into the conversation.
She does. Do you know, that's mad. I don't know if am I that boring person who talks about my wife all the time?
No, you just slip her in natural places.
Yeah, because we work together, but also we play together. We've been friends since I met Rachel when she was 16. I was 18. She was dancing in Jury's Cabaret for Tony Kenny. And my girlfriend at the time was also in the show.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee.
Strap in. You're in the race with F1 TV Premium. See what the race director sees with custom multi-view. Watch every jaw-dropping moment in live 4K UHD. Across up to 6 screens, uninterrupted. Experience ultimate live immersion with F1 TV Premium. Available on selected devices.
I know her for a very long time. She had a long-term boyfriend. I had a long-term girlfriend, and there was this. I always had this little thing for her, but I think she very firmly placed me into the friend zone. From the very early days. And then I had gone through, like maybe 9-10 years ago, I'd gone through kind of a bad breakup, and she was there for me. She was the kind of my shoulder to cry on, and that's when our relationship blossomed.
Okay.
So we worked together. We had the same kind of circle of friends.
How long are you together now?
We'll be married 6 years this August. We've been married 6 years. But we're together 8 years. When I finally kind of got her to agree to like me romantically, and we were together, we'd met this mortgage broker, and we were kind of going to put this plan together to get ourselves a gaff. And he kind of gave us this 3-year financial plan. Because the banks didn't really like what we're doing. Because I'm even though I was in RTE, still self-employed. And so I'm an actor. Banks don't like that. She's a dancer. Banks don't like that. So the mortgage broker was saying, if you do this to the letter of the law, I promise you in 3 years, you'll get your house.
And you had it was a 3-year plan to get your house?
It was a 3-year plan. So that was a 3-year plan. So we had to kind of like tidy up, finances and make sure nothing bounces, make sure all that kind of stuff. So, like really tidy up our, we weren't going on foreign holidays for a little while. We were just going to knuckle down and get our house. And then 6 weeks later, then she found out she was pregnant. Okay. So the 3-year plan that we had set out for ourselves, then we were like, okay, we can't not have a house for our child. So we condensed the 3-year plan down into one. We moved into Rachel's mum's house, into Nana Trassa, into the box room, and we lived like paupers for a year. We saved, we put everything, blood, sweat and tears, and then eventually then we got our house. The plan was originally, because we couldn't afford anywhere in Dublin, the plan was to move out to Bettystown, and that'll be our starter home. But since then, we've just really settled there. We've got a really good, cool circle of friends, a really nice little Gael school for Frankie and Cody for next year. And
the coast.
I was just out by the sea, and it was brilliant.
So
And that was a godsend during COVID then as well. And we don't need, it's just a normal 3-bed semi-D, but we don't need anything else. We're very, very happy.
And do the neighbours all address you as George McMahon?
No, you can't be famous in your own cul-de-sac. No, you can't. But we are blessed with the best neighbours. We've got Becky next door. She's cool. And then 2 doors down, then we have the Afghans. It's Abdullah Afghan and his family. They are from Afghanistan, and they're a family of doctors. And their kids play with our kids, and you know they're great. And like they say, it takes a village to raise a child. We're like that village, and we all kind of raise each other's kids. Yeah. It's great. And we've got Willow down the corner then as well, so all the kids play with each other. Little community, and yeah. So even though like the house might feel crowded or a little bit small, we're very happy where we are.
So has fatherhood been a big shift for you?
Yeah, for me, that was the biggest shift, because the biggest change, because I suppose when you're just fending for yourself, it's fine if you, I don't know, if you miss rent, or if you miss the mortgage, or if you know what I mean, if it's just you, like you can like make it work, but there's just an added responsibility. I don't know, you do change everything about yourself, I think, as a person. Yeah. When it's not just you.
Yeah, there's a fearfulness for them that becomes a sense of responsibility.
Yeah, I've become kind of a big wuss, even in roller coasters and stuff like that. You know, I don't think that's that
become risk averse.
Have I actually become like my dad? I don't know. But anyway, it happens, and that's kind of. I think it's definitely down to when you have kids. I think it's different. You know, makes.
But are you enjoying them?
Yeah, enjoying them, absolutely. Yeah, but I look at people, and I don't know, I find that they're lying, or else they're kind of sugarcoating it, and they're saying, you know, these people that pretend that it's not hard, you know, and it is hard. It's hard. It's sleep deprivation. The kids are wild. The kids kill each other. They love each other. We love them. But there is relentless, like, even though they do sleep at night mostly, we still haven't slept the same since they were born. Does that make sense?
That doesn't change.
That doesn't change, and that's what people keep saying as well. I'm like, you know, maybe the next milestone will be the thing. And actually, don't be wishing them away. But I'm just thinking, you know, maybe next year when both of them are in school, and I've got a day off, and they're in school all day, and I might go for a nap. But you never do, because there's always something to be done.
And what about when they see you on the TV? What happens?
They're so unimpressed.
Oh, they're probably so used to it.
So unimpressed, but they're kind of like, because YouTube and, you know, like, everyone's on the telly really now. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, no, they're like she kind of we were on holidays in Spain last year, and we were in quite an Irish resort. There was a lot of Irish, so I was getting recognised quite a lot away, and that would have been the first time that Frankie would have noticed. And she'd be like, why are they saying Mondo to you? She didn't understand what the Mondo thing. No. So then she kind of copped on then. So for the rest of the holiday, we'd be in a lift, and it'd be one of those quiet lifts, but another Irish couple, and I'd get the funny look. It was like, there's your man off the telly. And she pressed, and she'd just look up, and she goes, yeah, it's him. It's Mondo. But she'd be only doing that to embarrass me and wind me up. So, yeah.
I'm just thinking, though, George, as an actor, you're very lucky to have that steady job in Fair City that you've had for 20 years now, and to have your business, your stage school. There's so many actors that, like, they must worry so much about the resting periods. Yeah,
like, you know, one of the things I talk about in my workshop, I can't remember what the source of it was, but it was something like 90% of actors in the world right now are unemployed.
Wow.
90%. And now the idea is that it's not long-term unemployment, and but it still speaks
Still
to
unemployed means no money.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And
Yeah.
it speaks to how precarious the industry is. But there's, like I say, there's only 1% of actors that will rely solely on acting work alone.
Yeah.
So that means 99% of actors will have or should have a side hustle.
I remember going into a cafe in town in Dublin one day, and I went in for the cup of tea and the cake, and this guy served me, and I thought, I know him from somewhere. Where do I know him from? My friend with me said, straight out, she said, that's the actor guy. I said, no, don't be daft. Maybe it's a twin brother. But anyway, he came past and I said to him, we think we know you from the programme. And he said, yeah, this is what you do to be able to do the TV programme.
Yeah.
I was just taken aback for him.
I know.
Yeah.
He wasn't complaining, but it was real for him.
But even like actors at the best, at the top of their game, I'm talking about Shakespearean actors who, I think that the top rate in the Abbey is something like €950 a week. That's the top that any actor will ever earn in the Abbey Theatre, in the National Theatre, right? Which on paper is higher than a factory wage, but if you're talking about like the best of the best, like the Dennis Conway, this like a proper King Lear theatre actor, you're not going to be in there for 50 weeks of the year, 52 weeks. So the most that he will earn if he was to be, and he's the best of what we have, is somewhere within 40 grand a year. And I just think there's something a little bit wrong with that as well. That he's that is the best of the best, and that's what the National Theatre will pay.
And then they have to go out and presumably hustle then for the next job.
Yes.
Yeah.
Once that gig finishes, you've got your body back into auditions.
And that's it. Like
no guarantees.
That's it. Yeah, most people, if they go to college, they might have 5 job interviews in their entire working career in their 40 years, whereas some actors would have 5 job interviews in a week. And it's the rejection and it can be tough.
That must be hard, rejection.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
especially something that you've set your heart on.
Yeah.
Would you ever feel the precariousness of your own situation? I mean, what if they decided to write Mondo out, or if that what would happen?
Yeah,
because it does happen. That stuff does happen.
That is the nature of it. And also as well, the way things are going, is there going to be a market for soap opera going forward? That's another one, because with the look at Neighbours over in Australia.
Exactly.
Neighbours, and they tried to reboot it, and it didn't
take off. Yeah. And you'd have thought it was embedded. There was a time when it just was unthinkable that it would fall off the cliff.
Yeah, but we thought that about Glenroe as well.
Yeah.
And
so is it important to live in the moment then?
Yeah,
George?
Absolutely. I think so. And I still would like to think of myself as being able to make adventurous decisions. Not wild decisions, but I still, that's why I want to become less dependent on acting work, and that's why I'm investing as much time in the workshops and in the stage school, so that if the awful thing did happen, that it'll definitely soften the blow. But it's great. I still get involved. I still do short films, and I still put myself out there for bits and pieces that come in, so they can still scratch that creative itch. But for me, the thing that I can control is the business end of things, and that's something that kind of makes me sleep a little bit easier at night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not. I'm just thinking of you buy the house. Any actor who owns a house and doesn't have the full-time job, it must. How do you cope with the uncertainty of that?
Do you
have to be made for it?
I think you do. I think there is a certain kind of a madness in creative types that want to, but the alternative to that is, if you don't own the house and your mortgage is kind of, it's modest enough, but if you don't have a mortgage, the alternative is rent, which is
creeps and creeps and creeps. In fact, doesn't even creep; it leaps and leaps. And you have no certainty.
Yeah, and you worry then what happens, at retirement age, that the rent is still going up and the house is not paid off. So it's actually, for us, we actually wouldn't be able to afford to rent. That's kind of the way it would be. Yeah. So
you're seeing a return on your investments.
That's it. Yeah.
But you do an awful lot of other work besides, and of course the bits and pieces that you talked about that you picked up. But you do a lot of charity work. How do you fit all that in?
Yeah, so it's probably, the charity work is probably taking a little bit of a backseat since the kids. But if stuff comes in, there's lots, especially local stuff now, You know, the local Vincent Paul will pick up the phone, or if there's anything that
local
I can
10K
do.
or the 5K.
Yeah,
or
absolutely. Yeah, you know, even if I have to limp through it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
So it's something. I think that's one of the privileges of being your man off the telly.
And your name will bring other people. You leverage other people in. You leverage sponsors.
That's it.
So,
So you'd hope then that you
Yeah.
could, you know, again, make a small, you know. I'm not saying that I'm Bono, but you know, if I can help, you're Strictly. But you know, I'll give it a go. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Especially if it's going to the right place. You know.
Well, now you did climb Everest, didn't you?
Well, not quite Everest.
Okay,
So went to base camp, and then
that
we
was
did
for
this.
charity, wasn't
Yeah, that
it?
was for charity as well. Yeah. So
What was that like?
And did you walk up to base camp?
So we
Or hike?
we hiked to the base camp. So it was a 21-day hike, but we did this neighbouring peak called Island Peak, which is kind of like it's an ice wall, and it's a ridge,
way.
and it's kind of somewhere halfway between base camp and the death zone.
Who are you doing it for?
So we did it for the Hope Foundation.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Maureen
so we did it for
Forrest.
yeah, that's right. Yeah. So amazing experience, and we had been to Calcutta and to their projects. So it was something that was quite kind of, you know, we
Feel
knew where the
thankful
money
for
was
what you
going.
have.
Yeah, but
Exactly. Yeah.
mountaineering isn't something you just decide to do next Saturday, you know, with respect.
Well, it kind of was. Now, as a younger man than I am now, it kind of was. we did it. It was called training, but we climbed Carrantoul, and we might have done Lug de Quilla, but that was it. The rest of it was kind of like, you know, make sure you're fit yourself. I smoked at the time. And there was 14 of us 14 of us, and I think we raised like maybe 160 grand or something like that. But there was 14 of us, and out of the 14 that did it, 7 of us might have got to the summit, and out of that 7, 6 of us were smokers.
No.
And whatever happened to altitude sickness?
So altitude sickness affected the non-smokers more than it affected the smokers.
away.
So I'm not a scientist, but I think I might have been doing resistance training for all those years beforehand.
The smoking.
With the smoking. Now, thankfully, I'm off them 4 years. So that was another good change that I made in my life.
And would you go to the gym? Are you a gym person?
Well, no. I have great ideas and great ambitions to go to the gym. I turned 40 last year, and my plan was to get into shape for my 40th, and I still haven't. But I still have these little ideas and notions that next Monday I'm going to start in the gym, and I would like to do that next Monday.
Yeah. And tell us, when you went to base camp and you did that climb.
Yeah, Island Peak, yeah.
Island Peak with the
yeah.
ice climbing. I mean, at the end of it, did you say, or at any stage during it, did you say, this is probably the stupidest thing I've ever done in my entire life?
Yeah,
I'm going to kill myself here.
I think there actually might be video evidence of me saying those exact words. Those exact words. It's 100 foot. The last day of it was 100 foot ice wall. We had these pickaxes and we were wearing the crampons. And I remember I got to the top of it and I actually cried. I cried and I was like, do you know what? You know, I probably should have trained more for this.
And then you had to go back down.
That was easy.
That was easy.
Oh, was
so
it?
it was 21 days in total. So it was 14 days climbing, 7 days down.
Yeah.
Easy.
What, you just bumboard down?
Oh, yes, it slid the whole way down. Yeah, it was great. Yeah, it was
That
good.
kind of thing, though, changes your perspective on life, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, I don't know, we were was it, what's the name of it now? We're at Namche Bazaar, was an amazing place, and we're walking through, and all these Buddhist temples, and the day that we were passing through this little village, the Choi Lama was in town, which was kind of like the bishop to the priest, if you know what I mean. So the Dalai Lama up there, one of the the lower down lamas, was in town to do this meditation thing, you know, and I was quite a skeptic. I wasn't religious nor spiritual at the time. Ignorant maybe was the correct word. And I remember just going in and was handed a prayer flag and was just told to sit over there. And there was this kind of a chanting ceremony. I sit around and was going, oh my God, the pageantry. I just felt like it was just this thing that was set up for tourists. And eventually then I was like, oh my God, I just started getting taken by the whole thing. And it started, I don't know, working on me. Eventually then I actually started crying. And I had this kind of just like a spiritual moment. And it was just a bit too overwhelming that I ended up leaving the room because I thought my crying might have been affecting somebody else's enjoyment. So I walked outside and had a smoke. I walked outside, and as I lit the smoke, I looked up, and we'd been zigzagging through these interlocking spurs in the Himalayas, and we hadn't caught sight of the peak of Everest. And we were asking our tour guides, like, when are we going to see this stupid mountain? Oh, we'll see it. And we were due to see it in Namche Bazaar, one of these places along the way, but the cloud cover was too bad, so we weren't going to see it for another 2 days. Anyway, I got outside, I'm wiping my tears away, having a smoke, and I look up, and then there's just this circle of cloud that has disappeared, and it has perfectly framed the peak of Everest. And I couldn't believe, I was like, oh my God, it's like this moment was just written just for me.
Made for you.
Just made for me. And I just had this very special spiritual moment of enlightenment. I don't know what it was. I still don't know what it was. But it was still a beautiful kind of an experience.
Lovely moment. Yeah. Would you describe yourself as spiritual or religious now?
Do you know what? Maybe I'm still searching. It's funny. My dad has a newfound relationship with God, and we have these chats all the time. You know, debates, like strongly worded debates, and he studies the Bible now. You know, and he was never like that. It was never religious. It was never spiritual. But it's something that he has found comfort in recent times. You know, so I just pick at him. You know, and what about this? But he always has just this great answer. You know, so spiritual is probably a better word to describe because I'm open to it. Religious, probably not so much.
Did you have the conventional Catholic upbringing? You know, First Communion, Catholic school?
I was an altar boy, actually.
You were an altar boy.
There's the scoop.
Yeah, that's the scoop.
Yeah, I was an altar boy. Yeah, and
that was your first bit of drama and dressing up.
Yeah, it was great. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I was an altar boy, and actually, the one thing that I wanted to do was I wanted to ring the bell. I don't know, because that was a kind of a senior altar boy thing to do. So you had to wait until you were a little bit older to get to ring the bell. But one night I got to ring the bell. But it was Father Lamb who was very, very slow at reading the Mass. And I didn't know that I just ring the bell and stop. But I rang the bell for as long as he kept it up there. But he was waiting for me to stop. Oh. So I just kept ringing the bell kept ringing, and all I could hear was like people laughing, and my mum and everybody was all behind me. So that was me at the Catholic Church, yeah. So that was, we were brought up Catholic. I had my communion. I don't know, was it a tradition for you to go visiting for your communion?
Oh, yes.
Oh, you had to, because you had to collect the money.
Yeah.
Collect the money, yeah.
The money,
you had to do the
were different in our day, Mary.
Yeah, well,
friends and relations, yeah.
Yeah. So that's actually quite crass if you think about it, isn't it, going around collecting money? But anyway, there you go. At least nowadays, it's just everyone comes to you and you have your bouncy castle. So brought up Catholic, but kind of maybe became distance from it, as time came, you know, as time went on, and we've christened our kids, but I'm not sure where we're going to be at with the next things. I'm not sure if that's.
You're probably going to leave it to them.
But do you know what? I would actually love to leave it to them. I'd absolutely love to leave it to them rather than bestowing it upon them, and whatever they do, you know, we'll roll in behind.
Yeah,
but I'm not
so that it's theirs rather than yours.
Exactly, yeah. And I think that's probably, you know, we should all kind of take a leaf out of that book. It's kind of like, actually, you know, let us all make our own
because 7 or 8 is very early to be...
Very young to be, you know,
making a community.
Sure. And but it's not even about that anymore anyway. I'm looking at these... they're like bridesmaids kits now. Do you see them where they've
brides?
Yes, like they're like little bridezillas, but it's their communion day, and they've got these kind of these like silk pajamas with you know Christina's communion day, and they've got orange juice in their champagne flutes. And it's like, well, I don't know where Jesus is and all
shellac nails
and shellacs. Yeah, Bayab.
You're right.
Yeah.
My last experience of it was watching a kid trying to get into the front row of the church in a dress that had a hoop, an actual hoop all the way around the bottom of it.
Oh wow, like the King and I.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And the hoop luckily had a bit of bend in it, but the more you bent the hoop, the less room there was for anybody else in the pew.
She was expanding. The bigger the hoop, the more ready you are to receive the host.
George, we're talking about things that are changing and, you know, changing times. And the world has really changed a lot in your 40 years, you know, your young life. Are you very optimistic about the way things are at the moment? Or would you have a less optimistic
I consider
view of
myself to
affairs?
be. I consider myself to be
world affairs.
Yeah, I consider myself to be an optimistic person, but I'm sad to say that I'm a little bit worried, a little bit concerned about how things are going. How
for your kids,
just for the near future. Anyway, I just think it's very volatile. I think we've stood by and borne witness to some of the most horrific scenes in the last 2-3 years. I wonder, how my kids will look at even us and go, well, what did you do when this happened? And I actually kind of struggle with the idea that actually I didn't do that much. I didn't do enough. Like I hosted a table quiz for Gaza.
Yeah, well, maybe that's as much as you can hope to do.
Yeah.
What can you do? I mean, obviously, protest. Our government's been very good about presenting the case for an end to the Gazan war, and in particular the absolutely dreadful violence visited upon children and women and children there.
It's, the worrying trend is how disenfranchised people are becoming, and it's the disenfranchised people, the people that don't feel like they belong anywhere, the people that don't feel like they're seen or heard. They're the people then who are there for the taking. They're the people by the far right.
Correct.
These are the people. These see me. These people hear me, and it's destructive, and it's happening before our very eyes. You always look back at how did Hitler do it.
That's how.
And you're looking at a version of it, and I'm hoping that this. They say that times and ages are cyclical, and I'm hoping that this is not the cycle coming back around. Rather it's just the anomaly, and maybe it might be the fright that society needs to get us back into normality.
Hope you're right.
I hope so
if you
too.
could change one thing in your life, or not just your life, but anywhere, if you could change one thing, what would it be, do you think?
I think it would be able to tangibly spot a lie. Wouldn't that be amazing? Is that too simple? Is it? It's a superpower. Yeah, I just think Liar, what a great movie with Jim Carrey. And he just can't lie.
Yeah.
But imagine it's just that thing of especially nowadays with the disinformation or misinformation, is that you can literally just put. It happened all over COVID as well. It was like, the WhatsApp voice notes, and it was like, a mate of mine knows another mate who works in the army, and he's saying that Allenwood is being shut down because of the lockdown because there was 14 cases of COVID or whatever. And there's no such thing of it, but it was just because it was accompanied with a voice note of somebody who knew somebody. That's just kind of like a miniature version of misinformation or disinformation. I don't know the difference between the two. Is there?
Probably not.
Yeah, probably not. But it was that thing of Trump doesn't like fact checking, and he never did, and I know why. But if you see something and you just go, is that true? And another Google search will tell you whether it's backed up by something else or by other sources, and if not, well then make your own decision on it then, but don't be told. Fact-checking and just figuring out the lie more quickly was normalised. I just think that would help a lot.
A very big thank you, as always, to our producer, Enda Grace, and the team here at Dundara Television and Media, right in the heart of County Kildare, and to Hannah, who's been working with us in studio today.
We're also very grateful to our researcher, Anne-Marie Staunton, and to our wonderful sponsor, the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee, for their continued support.
If you've enjoyed today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, give us your rating, wherever you get your podcasts. Actually, go on, do it now. It really does help.
So, from all of us here in Allenwood, County Kildare, go dtí an chéadúrella, slánagwibh.
Changing Times, the Allenwood Conversations.
Sponsored by the Meadowlands Hotel in Tralee.